Hello everyone, for my English speaking audience, hola to my Spanish speaking audience, and a very special Vitu Satana to my Finnish speaking audience. We're back for another world record review. Today we have an important question to answer, that is whether or not 147 on GCN Waluigi Stadium is possible. Long story short, the answer is yes, guys. You can click off the video now. Just kidding, because we have some very important things to look at in this run. I should also mention really quickly, there is a poll going on my channel. If you guys want to choose the next world record I review, go ahead and check that out. Go vote and determine the fate of my channel. So guys, I have some important news. I reached out to Sniperwolf and I wanted to see if she wanted to join me for a world record review. I was thinking the next one's going to be Toad's Factory, but once again, it's going to be determined in the poll on my channel. But I reached out to Sniperwolf, and I'm hoping for a response. I've not gotten one yet, but I'll go ahead and read out the email that I sent to her. Hello, Madam Sniperwolf. I am Carter, aka a famous Mario Kart Wii YouTuber. Perchance you heard of the other, though less well-known, TWD98. I have over 110 million subscribers expressed in binary code on YouTube, which I'm sure you've heard of that website, I think. This is more subscriptor than you could ever dream of. Despite that, I am emailing you with the Genrios invitation to be in my next world record anal cyst video, where I watch Log Dog's Mario Kart Gamer 149.039 on TF Toad Factory. If you wish to partake, please email me with your Snapchat and personal phone number, and we can discuss business in a professional manner. Thank you for your time, baby girl. Sincerely, Carter, famous YouTuber. So yeah, I'm really hoping for a response. It would be great to collaborate with her, and I can help out a smaller creator such as herself, who certainly has no controversy going on whatsoever. It would be great to help her out. So guys, I was hearing some yappage from some of you talking about how I claimed that this world record was borderline unbeatable, the 203.750. And if we go to the world record history, we'll see Sosis, he changed his name backwards to normal words, and he beat it by 1 millisecond and got a .749. Guys, and I need you to listen closely, because I said in the title it's borderline unbeatable. And tell me, if someone beats it by a millisecond, are you gonna say, that disproves him? Like, of course not. Just cry about it. And also, I don't even come to that conclusion in the video. I said it could go down quite a bit. In fact, I think right now Sosis could drive probably a 203.5. I think that would be a pretty reasonable time for him to get, especially considering the paces he's been getting. So yeah, with that being said, cry about it, and we're going to move on. A lot of you guys have been telling me I yap too much in these videos. I need to let you know I don't care. I'm going to keep yapping, but now it says to stop yapping in my to-do list, so I'm going to go ahead and stop. And we're going to get into this world record review that you've been waiting for so patiently. So let's go ahead and look at the world record history, because this is how we always start. And let's go back to a classic world record. Actually, we'll start with Totem. So going back to 2011, he took the torch and he pushed it down, and he had the record until 2018. This man had an absurdly long reign. I believe the second longest in the game. In fact, I could check that, but I don't feel like it. Yeah, he got a low 150. He got his 150.169. Really pushed it down. Got the first 149 and 148. And he was just so ahead of his time. A 148 is still a really impressive time nowadays. This is still 10th worldwide, looking at the charts right here. This is his time he got in, 2013? Yeah, 2013. Isn't that insane? This time from 2013, 11 years later, still on worldwide tops. But yeah, moving on from Totem, Ace pushed it down a little bit. It's really just been him and Connor, to be honest. I think both players have potential to push this record down farther. You can see Ace got the first .7, Connor with the first .6, Ace getting the first .4, and they just traded it. And beyond that, Connor's really taken the torch. But once again, I think both players have potential for more. And I'm really looking forward to this run from Connor, looking where some of the mistakes are, seeing how much time there really is left to squeeze out from GCN Waluigi Stadium, and really seeing, is 147 the limit, or would we see like a mid 147 in the future? I am very curious, and I know you are too, because you're going to watch this entire video. without any break or anything like that. So let's go ahead and look at the worldwide top. We can see we got Totem 148.8 from 2013, and then these are all more modern times. I don't know who half of these people are because they're lying in their names. I think Shatz is Falco. I think this is Logan. These are Japanese players. I don't know who this is. I just know this is Ace, this is Batcake, this is Connor. You can see we have quite a few 0.7s. I think beyond like a 0.7, it just gets really difficult to optimize. Like getting a really solid 3-for-3 turn skip, really taking advantage of all the small optimizations of the track, and getting beyond a 0.7 is where the challenge really begins. And I really think it's just the Ace and Connor show. But Connor has been pushing for the 147, and I am confident that he can get it done in the near future. So with that being said, let's go ahead and take a look at the run. I'm not sure if RC9 is a reference to something. I don't know. But yeah, let's go ahead and get this run started. You can see right off the bat, he's going to start pretty much the same way everyone else does. You don't want to realign just because you actually get a slightly better alignment if you start the run and then you kind of adjust in your wheelie. It just gives a very minor difference in the alignment that makes it a little bit easier to take this first turn. So you can see he's going to nudge to the right. I wish we had an input display. That would be so nice. Okay, well, I guess we're going to watch it without an input display. That's unfortunate, because I wanted to watch the turn skip and like really get a good look at it. But you know, we'll suffice. So I believe we are looking at Connor's former world record. We're going to slow it down because so much just happened in this 5 seconds, and I need you to look at it. Okay, so he comes off. You don't get a trick here, because if you get a trick, you're going to end up with quite a bit of speed on this landing, and it's going to send you wide in this next turn. Like by this point, you would probably be over here if you had a trick boost. You might be a little bit farther ahead, but with how wide you are, you're not really saving any time with the trick boost. So you don't trick here, you just wheelie, and then the later you can't, so you have to cancel this wheelie at some point, because you obviously have to make this turn. The later you cancel it, the better, because you're going to be at this top wheelie speed for a little bit longer. The longer you stay with the wheelie. He cancels it around a bit earlier than this. He cancels it. Let's see where he cancels it. Yeah, so he cancels it right here. You'll notice his front tire just dropped. That's him canceling the wheelie. And you do that to get the bike kind of angled more downward, and then you can take this turn super tight. And something to keep note of if you're playing this track, you never want to land beyond this like shadow line right here. Falco said you will die if you hit this, so do not go to the right of this. You can see Connor knows that for a fact, and he's staying super tight. There are a few different variations with the bounces you can get after this first turn right here. You'll notice Connor got some slight bounces compared to this Ghost, his former world record, which was, I believe, a higher 0.1. Not too big of a deal, but it is going to send him a little bit wider. It does affect how he takes this MT, though. Like if we take a look at this, I'm actually going to go down the quarter speed. You can see he gets some bounces here. He's sent out a little bit wider. This Ghost MTs, and he gets in the wheelie much earlier, but his alignment, you can see, is a little bit wider. So, and also it looks like he gets some kind of bounces or something on these bumps as well, which looks like it costs a little bit of time, because you'll notice Connor's a little bit down here, and then for whatever reason he catches back up. It might have to do with the MT, you know, still being activated and running out a little bit later, since this one released their MT earlier. But they end up pretty close around the same place. They're going to start their drifts at slightly different times just because they're not exactly in the same place. And they're going to hold a hard right drift, kind of going over this bump right here, which isn't really a problem. Sometimes it can throw off your alignment, but in this case it wasn't a problem. You can see he's following pretty much an exact path right towards this panel right here, these boost panels. This is a very difficult part of the track to navigate properly, not because of this part itself, but because of where you land. So you'll notice he's holding hard right here, and the way I've heard this described is you have to imagine your thumb is like a pendulum, and it's on the right side of the analog stick, and as you're going off this panel, you'll see you go down, and then you hold it there. So he's holding down now, and that you'll notice his bike is rotating while he's in the air, and he's going to release that MT. That's going to give him a little bit more speed, just so he can make it all the way. You're going to try and land as close as you can to this dirt, but obviously not on the dirt, or else your run is over. But you can see his bike is rotating in the air because he is holding down, and he gets a really, really nice landing. Like in a lot of cases, you can just barely hit this dirt and lose all your speed, But in this case, like, he's landing right on the edge. You can see, I'm going to go back just a tiny bit. You can see exactly where the off-road starts. It's going to be right along, not just along the dirt itself, but on where the top of this surface is where the actual off-road starts. And you can be as close as you want to it, even touching that off-road, or at least touching the dirt, and it won't slow you down. So Connor does this perfectly. You can see the Ghost is a little bit farther ahead. I'm trying to see what exactly caused that. I think it has to do with how they start here. This Ghost might have a more left to right angle, and this drift might have a slightly tighter drift angle. Yeah, you can see it stays. It looks like it has a pretty similar input compared to Connor. It just started a little bit farther to the right with nearly the same inputs, so it's going to land a little bit farther to the right. So this Ghost does it a tiny bit better. Big problem when you do this section is hitting this invisible wall. This wall right around here extends upward, and you can't hit it or else the run is dead. You can see Connor gets extremely close to it, but he dodges it just barely. A lot of runs die to that, especially at a lower level. It's very difficult to deal with. And taking this turn can be difficult as well, just because if you don't land at exactly this right spot, you can get swung out really wide. You can end up in a really uncomfortable spot, and the run is just over. So Connor manages it perfectly, and he makes this next turn here. He's going to charge his MT, and he's aiming for a very specific spot as he releases this MT. He's aiming to be as close as he can to this boost panel right here, as tight as he can, parallel, without touching this part of the ramp that's not the boost panel. And we're now entering the wall bounce, which is a notoriously difficult part of the track. It's still pretty easy to manage. Actually, at a lower level, it's not that hard to manage. You just do an up trick wall bounce. But this down trick wall bounce is a lot faster. It saves about half a second. And, you know, especially at a lower level, most people don't care for directional tricks. But this is a case when it really, really does matter. And you can look at why. So he's getting nice and parallel to this ramp right here. You can see the Ghost is doing it with him. And he's going to start holding left here very soon. And when he does that, he's going to get a down trick, and he's going to go right into this invisible wall right here, and it's going to shoot him down right away. And there isn't really another convenient way to low trick this ramp. This is the best way known at the moment. I mean, there might be ways with TAS. I think TAS is just rapid fires it like you would expect. But at the moment, this is the best way of dealing with this ramp. So you get the wall bounce. It looks like they get slightly different wall bounces. I'm going to try and see why that is. You can see, for whatever reason, it looks like this Ghost here hits it at a slightly different angle and ends up a little bit farther forward. You can see this Ghost is down just a tiny bit. It looks like they hit the wall at slightly different spots. Let's go back a couple of frames. The Ghost is hitting the wall at a slightly lower spot. Like, so they're hitting the wall at this very moment. And for whatever reason, this Ghost suddenly drops a lot faster, a lot closer to the ground, and is able to get back to top speed a little bit earlier. So despite being a little down going into it, this Ghost is doing this wall bounce slightly better, saving maybe 20 milliseconds. Overall, these are just very small variations that would come with any run you do. But overall, this is very well done. A lot of different ways that this can be messed up, but this is pretty much the best variation you could ask for. So coming off of this ramp right here, he's going to do a wheelie, and he's actually very close to an invisible wall. This fence right here extends upward, and if you hit any of that, the run is dead. You just lose all your speed. He's very close to it. Another thing that can cause a problem is if you land kind of on this downward sloping section right here. Am I in HD? It's not perfect quality. Let me go to higher quality for you guys. Okay, this is slightly better. So landing on this sloped section can cause problems as well. It can give you bounces as you enter this shroom. He's landing very close to the bottom though, so he's not actually going to be riding this wall. He's just kind of clipping it and then actually getting on the dirt. The main problem is if you bounce, you can end up not getting an MT coming out of this dirt section. Not really a problem for Connor. You can see he spends very little time actually on this wall right here, and he's mostly in the dirt, able to charge his MT up super quickly. In terms of time save, you'll notice Connor is a little bit to the left of his previous Ghost. He takes the cut a little bit tighter. The entire time he is to the left of his Ghost, except at this very end moment, but he saves a little bit of time. So coming out of this shroom, we get to a very difficult part of the track, which is this turn right here. This is partly QM, partly, you just kind of have to ball it and commit to it. But you'll notice Connor takes it very aggressively. A lot of ways this can go wrong. You really have to hold left the entire time. or else you risk like detaching from the surface of the wall, or you could end up just taking it super wide, neither of which are good. Connor has a lot of experience with this track. He just knows he has to ball it, and he takes it the exact perfect way you could imagine. And you can see the earliest you can get onto this zipper right here is right here. And the sooner you get on the zipper, the better. You're going to be at a higher top speed. You can see he's at 84 kilometers an hour on this frame. And, you know, the second you get on here, he's around 90, but when he gets back down to the ground, he's at 120. He's just a lot faster than base speed. So we're going to pay attention on all 3 laps of where exactly he hits this zipper. You can see he's pretty close. He could be a little bit closer, but then again, like, this is really the best you could ask for. The QM is just so difficult to manage. You can see right away he's going for a wheelie as he gets on this zipper. They are deceptively difficult to do, a lot more difficult than on DK Summit for whatever reason. I think Zach or ZD Lokes, he has a great video on it. I will link it down below. We get to another important part of the track, arguably the most important at a top level, which is this turn skip right here. I'm going to go ahead and play it at top speed because it is just so cool to watch and how Connor just masterfully does it. Now there are a couple different variations to it. I'm going to go ahead and slow it down. I just want to pay attention to what kind of inputs he does. We don't have an input display. I'm just going to kind of ball it. So he's going to do, you're going to keep an eye on this pipe. If you're trying to learn turn skip, you really want to aim for this pipe when you start doing your first trick. You can see he does it a little bit later than this green pipe, so that means you need a pretty good low trick here if you want to make the turn skip and manage it. This is absolutely perfect for Connor. You can see it looks like this is a down trick, I believe it is. Yeah, so he down tricks it. And when he gets back to this zipper right here, he's holding up left or hard left. I think most of the time you hold up left the entire time. And there's a very specific hop timing that you want when you land back on the zipper. I believe it's around here. And when you get that hop, you can see it doesn't send you flying. It keeps you pretty close to the surface, right? And it gives you a good angle going into this up trick right here. I think you can get any kind of trick, but you can see he stays very nice and low to the ground. It's not a super far turn skip. Like in some cases you can land as far as like over here when you do a turn skip, but those aren't necessarily the fastest. I think the fastest variation is when you just barely make it and you can get back to the ground as soon as possible. That's a common theme. It's just airtime is slower. So he gets a very good variation in my view. You can see when he gets this first trick, he's really not that far off the ground. He gets his hop out. He realigns. He gets his trick. And it sends him flying. Now this is a very hard trick to do. It saves anywhere from like 0.7 seconds to like a full second or something like that, depending on how you do it. But I would only recommend going for this if you have been playing the game for a very long time, because this is a very difficult strategy to learn, arguably one of the hardest no glitch strategies. But it's still learnable, and I encourage players to at least give it a shot. So with that being said, we're now moving on. You can see I'm trying to see exactly what led to Connor being so far ahead. Might be, I think it was a slight variation to how they did the previous turn that we were talking about before. It also looks like his turn skip was a little bit better than the previous ghost as well. So you can see Connor is exiting the turn skip now. He's going to get his wheelie out as soon as he can before he exits this. So you can see Connor's going to go ahead and get his wheelie out. They have very different alignments here. I believe they're aiming for roughly the same spot. You'll see they are becoming much closer together. It looks like Connor's ghost right here got a slightly different variation of the turn skip, because you'll notice, look how far this ghost is behind, and you'll notice this ghost has a much more direct path. Like Connor got sent out pretty wide here. I think this is slower. Especially considering, the boost doesn't last forever. It lasts for a very limited amount of time, and you want a very good alignment coming out of it. And you'll notice, like, while he's in the air, this ghost just suddenly saved a bunch of time. Like, look at where this ghost is right now. It's down. It's a little hard to tell because they're not directly in front of each other. I would say maybe 30 milliseconds. And then, bang. So the boost has run out now, and now it looks like Connor's down. It looks like he's down on his former world record. I think this really does come down to the turn skip, and I think particularly the exit, because they're getting the same amount of boost, and you'll see the ghost just has, I think, a better alignment. And now it looks like they are aiming for roughly the same spot, So coming into this next turn here, you don't trick because very similarly to the first turn on this track, getting a trick will give you too much speed and you can't manage the next turn. You can see this turn is very tight. Looking at the mini-map, it's a U-turn. I mean, you have to take this tight, and getting a trick will just really throw you off. So they don't go for a trick. And you stay as tight as you can to this wall. You can't touch this upslope or else you will die in real life and the run will be over. And this last mini turbo release right here, this can be so frustrating. And I'm sure, like, if any of you guys have played this track, you understand. Getting the wheelie out is the hard part. I think it's all QM. There are ways you can manage it. You can hold the MT out a little bit longer. So you like counter drift so like the safe way of doing it would be you're holding right here, then you start counter drifting, you're holding left, and you hold left until probably around this point, and then you can turn and get your MT out and get the wheelie, and it's much safer that way. I would say about 90% consistent. This way is not 90% consistent, but it is the fastest way, and it's the way Connor goes for in the run. You'll notice exiting this MT, they have slightly different alignments. I think that has to do with how they exit, how they exit this turn. You'll notice just due to different bounces, but also how they entered that turn. You can see Connor's a little bit to the right, and you'll see they release the MT. They are about a bike width apart, and they get pretty similar. They're pretty much parallel, just slightly apart, partly separated. They start their drift around the same time, slightly different apexes just because they have slightly different alignments there. But something else that's interesting, they actually clip a little bit of this wall, and also this dirt right here isn't really a problem. The off-road doesn't start until this dark section right here, but this like light brown section isn't off-road, so not a problem at all. So you can actually clip this, and it can make this turn a little bit faster. And you can also clip it and have the turn be a little bit slower as well. It can send you wide. It could just end your run. Not really end your run, but it'll cost you a little bit. There are variations which save time. Connor does get a good variation. I think you just have to be really aggressive with it. But if you don't hit this at all, you don't have to do this unless you're at 148. Like, you really don't have to. I don't think you even have to do this at 148 territory. This is just Connor being Connor. But yeah, you'll see it kind of rotates his bike a little bit more, and that's what you're looking for if you intend to hit that. And I think it can be done a little bit cleaner. There are, like, I've seen videos of people doing it very, very well. Some Tasses do it very well. So exiting the turn right here, going into the last trick. Now this is something that a lot of players struggle with, and I definitely struggle with it as well, being almost in 152 territory, probably 151 in the near future, wink wink. But something I've noticed is that a lot of players tend to go to the left side of this ramp. This ramp is very interesting. I've heard it gives you lower airtime if you're on the left. That is just word on the street, cannot confirm nor deny, just a rumor. And it also helps, and you'll notice he's going to be holding left while he's going up, and you're like, and now you're definitely thinking, I know you're thinking this, you're thinking, why is he going left? Well, for some reason, doing a right drift when you hold left on this ramp gives you lower air. If you don't do it right, you can get high air, of course. I mean, you can mess up any low trick. But for whatever reason, like, there's no other low trick like this in the game where you hold left and then you drift right. It's so weird. I don't get it. You're obviously also delay tricking to get lower airtime as well. And then this landing can be very difficult as well. And he nosedives it all 3 laps. Very easy to get bounces. It's so hard to land from this ramp. I personally, like, you can tail dive this really. I don't think it loses that much time, and it's 100% safe. But Connor, he wings it, he balls it, he nut sacks it, and he gets a 36.148 lap 1. Let's compare that to the BKS. Okay, Waluigi Stadium no glitch. The best split is a 36.083, and that sounds about right, because I would say I didn't notice any big mistakes here. I mean, there are slight variations that could have been more optimal to different turns and all that. He didn't have any glaring errors or anything. I mean, this was masterfully done. So, best split being a .083, I can't say I'm surprised. That just seems like a slightly cleaner version of this. I mean, 148 compared to 083, that's actually very close to the BKS for how, like, dynamic this track is, and how technical it is. This is a very, very good lap. And also only 8 milliseconds ahead of his previous world record. So you can lose that in an instant. He has some hard work to do over these next 2 laps. Let's see how Connor manages. So you can see entering lap 2, he has a very, very tight alignment. I personally do not go this tight, but maybe I will start doing that if that's what Connor's doing. You can see this Ghost is quite a bit farther to the ground. He's quite a bit closer to the ground. I'm trying to see why that is. This Ghost is a little bit farther to the right. It could have to do with just the very small difference in height between these two. You'll see this this ramp starts to slope down right here. You might have a slightly different amount of air time if you go off closer to the right side, or it might just be bounces. I don't know, but for whatever reason, this Ghost is quite a bit lower to the ground. I don't know if that's faster. It looks like it allows him to take the turn a little bit tighter, actually. I mean, you're not able to start your drift until quite a bit later. Like, look at this Ghost is starting its drift here. Let's count the frames until Connor can start his drift. We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay, so about like 8 or 9 frames. Okay, if we say 9 frames, that's about 150 milliseconds. This Ghost here is getting a 150 millisecond head start on this drift, is able to take it much tighter. Well, by much tighter, I mean like a bike width tighter. But still, it saves a little bit of time. Not really within your control. Slight difference in bounces coming out of this turn as well. You can see Connor's a little bit wider. Because of the bounces, it sends him a little bit wider. Slightly different alignments. This Ghost is bouncing like crazy, looking like a kangaroo out here. Look at it bounce. Anyway, they start the drift, slightly different places. Look at this Ghost. It is really just balling it, doing whatever it wants. It's actually not losing any time from this, though. Like, you'll notice, let's see where it is right now. Maybe like 30, 20 milliseconds ahead. No, like 30, I would say. And with all these weird bounces and changes to its alignment, it's still ahead. I mean, I would say this isn't 30 anymore. This is probably more like 20, 25. But they enter the ramp, and let's see what happens here. Looks like the Ghost takes it a little bit tighter, a slightly better angle. They release their MTs as well. Oh, but here's something notable. Here's something very notable. As they land, pay attention to this Ghost. Look where it lands. It lands at what looks like the perfect spot, right? I mean, we talked about you want to be as tight as you can to this dirt, but don't be on the dirt. He's not on it. But he gets bounces. Look at that. Look at that. That is something to see, is it not? Okay, so look at this. Look at this. Hey, wake up. I know you're falling asleep. Wake up. So, releasing this MT. So exiting this turn, this Ghost gets quite a few bounces, and Connor is able to take this turn quite a bit tighter. You'll notice he's about a bike width to the right as he releases this MT. He is saving a tiny bit amount of time, getting closer to this Ghost. In fact, he even passes the Ghost. Why does he pass the Ghost? It has to do with some very minor QM. I don't think that's QM. I think, like, pay attention to this Ghost right here. He's nudging. He's holding hard right. I think he doesn't have a great alignment coming out of this MT right here. You can see you want to be parallel to this ramp, and this Ghost was parallel, but it was probably more like a slight left to right angle, I would say. And it has to compensate for that. So it wheelie nudges in the air, which I guess loses you time. I didn't think it would lose you time, but whoop-de-doo. I think it might have started wheelie turning on the ground. Yeah, it looks like he's already doing it, and he is on the ground. So he's starting to lose time by this point. And Connor has a perfect alignment. He really nudges a little bit, but really not something significant. And you'll see it's the boost panel. And let's look at this wall bounce. So once again, slight variations on how it's done. You'll notice something interesting about this wall bounce. You can oftentimes land on this part of the ramp right here that's sloped. You really don't want to be there. It's so much easier to manage when you could just get back to the surface really quickly and get the wheelie out like Connor does here. And you'll notice this Ghost has a weird, like, sideways angle. It makes it harder to manage this next turn. You oftentimes get bounces as you try to get the wheelie out. It's just kind of a mess. So Connor is really taking advantage of that as he enters this shroom. You can see the Ghost is now off-screened. I was going to say Honolulu as if that meant bye-bye, but, like, what was I trying to say? Sayonara. Yeah, that's it. Sayonara, bitch. So exiting the shroom, you can see Connor's now off-screening this Ghost, almost off-screening as they enter this next turn. Let's see how they manage it. Looks like they have pretty similar alignments going into it. And once again, Connor's going to land on this zipper very close. I think he enters the zipper here a little bit later than he did on lap 1, but by a very small amount. I mean, lap 1 we were talking about landing around probably like right here, I would say. Connor's going to enter, I'd say like half an arrow farther, right? So something pretty minor. He's going to get his wheelie out, and it looks like the Ghost is a little bit closer than I recall him being. Not too big of a deal, though. I think that just has something to do with how they took that turn, being a little bit less optimized. So going into the turn skip lap 2, this is super important once again. Staying nice and low to the ground, getting a good turn skip. So let's take a look at how he does it. Let's see where he lands. You can see he lands at a pretty similar spot as well. I think he landed a little bit farther, so let's pay attention to where he lands. It's going to be a little hard to see because the camera is kind of weird. But it looks like he landed. God, this is a crazy frame. Let's go back. Okay, he's landing around here. Let's take a look at where he landed lap 1. Okay, so we're on lap 1 now. We're going to go ahead and contrast that with lap 2's wall bounce, or not wall bounce, turn skip. Okay, it looks like he lands just a tiny bit earlier. He's going to land somewhere around here compared to lap 2, the Ghost, or yeah, his run's going to land somewhere around here. Hard to say if this is making like a big difference or not. I think the best we can do is kind of compare to the Ghost and see for ourselves. It looks like the Ghost gets a much higher turn skip. Like, pay attention to this Ghost. You can see Connor's pretty much at the apex of his turn skip right here. Like, he's not going to go higher than this. This Ghost, look how big he is. He's so big and meaty. He's still going higher. He's still going higher. Now he's at the apex. So this Ghost is going to land quite a bit farther on the turn skip, and I believe that is substantially slower. And I think we will see that in a moment as the Ghost catches up. Or not. Okay, yeah, you can barely see it. The Ghost is like he's pretty far to the right here. But I think that's also a consequence of just kind of getting not perfect QM after the turn skip, or not a perfect alignment or whatever. You end up wide and farther to the right like this. I think that is slightly slower, as we've seen in lap 1. It looks like it catches up all of a sudden. Wait, what in the world? How does this happen? I have a theory about why this is happening, and it has to do with a slight bounce that he gets. So I'm going to pay attention to his speedometer. That is the metric we're going to be looking at. He hops right here. He's going to 84, 83. As he gets this bounce, it looks like he drops to 82. He's slowing down a little bit. I mean, that looks pretty normal, I'm not going to lie, but I want to compare to lap 1 when it's a little bit different. So let's see what happens with the speedometer. So he hops 83, he stays at 83, 82, 81, and he lands around 81 kilometers an hour. How fast is he when he lands here? So when he lands from here, it looks like he's going about 1 kilometer an hour slower when he's landing from this hop. I don't really have a good. I mean, I feel like this doesn't justify how much time this Ghost actually saved on Connor here, unless he was closer than I initially thought. But I mean, it looks like he's pretty far behind here, is he not? You can see he's off screening, and then this Ghost immediately catches up. I'm really not too sure why this happens. I actually want to go look at the former world record. Okay, so we're now looking at the former world record. I'm going to go ahead and slow it down. Whoa. Calm down. Quarter speed. Okay, I see what was happening. We can see this Ghost just has a slightly higher speed going over this bump. It's at 84. It's slowing down a little bit. That's just what happens when you get airtime. But it lands at 81 kilometers an hour, and it's immediately back up to 83. Compared to this one, you can see it's in the air, it drops down, and it lands at 81, and it takes a little bit of time to actually accelerate back up to the base speed. I don't know if this is even controllable. That's so weird. I didn't even know you could lose time there. So anyway, we're going to exit this next turn right here in the world records perspective. You can see slight variations to how they took this turn. Let's look at this Ghost right here. The Ghost it looks like it enters a little bit wider and it exits a little bit tighter. It looks like it was about the same. I mean, the Ghost is down initially by a little bit and then exiting this turn right here. Oh, it actually looks like this Ghost lost a bit of time. It looks like it didn't get the wheelie out as soon as it should have. Like, if we pay attention to this Ghost, pay attention to this when this MT runs out. It runs out now. And this Ghost is not in the wheelie. Connor is. So it's going to spend a little bit of time slowing down, basically as if it got like a half chain. And you can see this Ghost is now accelerating from a slower speed. Well, Connor's still at top speed. He's at 96. And until they go into this next turn, this Ghost was losing time. So from here until this next turn, this Ghost is losing time over the current world record by this point. Yeah. So now they are no longer kind of changing distance from one another, and now it's back to just regular driving. So entering this next turn, it looks like the Ghost enters a little bit tighter than Connor does in his new world record. They exit I would say that they didn't lose or gain any substantial time here. This looks about the same. They didn't really clip the wall like they did lap 1. But not too big of a deal. Okay, so going into this last trick here, Connor's going to hold left. He's going to drift to the right. Get a very nice low trick out. I think it could have been a little bit lower, but then again, it could have been a lot higher at the same time, and he could have just lost 150 milliseconds out of nowhere. So there we are. We are exiting lap 2. Connor has a 36.045. BKS is actually quite a bit faster than this. It's an 8.16, and I'm curious if there was some other strat used or something like that, because this is quite a bit faster than what Connor got. So we're just going to go through this pretty quickly, and I know the quality is a little bit worse as well. But let's just see what happens here, out of curiosity. I mean, it just looks like he gets the good variations to everything so far. Nothing really out of the ordinary, just very well executed. And I'm sure this turn skip is going to be fire as well. Oh yeah, that was fire. So something else I'm noticing from this BKS, look how late he starts this first trick. I mean, I usually aim for this green pipe when I start my trick. Look how late he is to it. So he's spending very little time messing around. He is getting right to that turn skip. He's just, it's so fast. And it looks like he might get the good bounce that we were talking about earlier right here on this bump. That's also a possibility. Oh yeah, and that low trick was super low. Like, Connor was probably around here by this point. I mean, he's just super low in this BKS run. That is just a crazy fast. Okay, so we are now exiting lap 2 now, and we're going into lap 3, and we are now 44 milliseconds ahead of this previous world record. And entering this ramp, they have pretty similar alignments. Something I noticed right away is they both hold right. It looks like Connor does it slightly more aggressively in this new run. They get about the same airtime. We noticed lap 2 they had slightly different amounts of airtime. It looks like they both got the high variant compared to what the Ghost got on lap 2. We get some variations in the bounces as well. You'll notice Connor lost a little bit of time. Let's see where they are entering. You can see the Ghost is a bit over a bike length behind. And then going into these bumps right here, he's sent out a little bit wider. And you'll notice the Ghost is now to his right. So the Ghost is taking a more direct path to their destination. But once again, it's about the journey, not about the destination. Well, it is Mario Kart, so I guess it's only about the journey, right? God, this is pretty deep. Anyway, let's move on. Okay, so they released the MT, and they have pretty similar alignments by this point, but Connor did lose quite a bit of time. I would say about half of the lead he had is now gone. So how they take this next turn is going to be very important, since they have very similar alignments going into it. It looks like the Ghost is getting some slight bounces. As you can see, he hits this kind of upslope right here. Connor hits it as well, but just because of the difference in QM, it looks like he does not get the bounces. I think that maybe loses 5 milliseconds for this Ghost. I think Connor saved a little bit of time, really not significant compared to other things. So going into this turn right here, it looks like they get very similar angles. Connor's just a little bit ahead. You'll notice he's a bit to the left. Oh, but they get different landings. This is going to be quite important. So you'll notice Connor he's ahead in terms of time, but he's also farther to the left. It's a little hard to tell, but you'll notice the Ghost is now to the right. He's getting this turn absolutely perfectly. You'll notice he's landing. Let me go back a couple of frames. Okay, so this is about where they land. You'll notice Connor in his new world record is not at all landing on this upslope. Connor in his Ghost, the former world record, is, and he's able to ride this and take it a little bit tighter. So let's pay attention to how they take this turn. You'll notice the entire time this Ghost is to the right of Connor, and he just lost what, 60 milliseconds from the start of this lap. I mean, he's got some time to make up. He's got to make up about 0.1 to get this 148.108 that he gets. So let's see how he does it. So going into this turn, I think there were slight differences on how they managed this. Yeah, so it looks like Connor's he did a quick right-left input. Let me take a look at this. He goes right, left. Yeah, very minor. I don't think that loses any time since he's in the air. I can't really tell what the ghost is doing, but they get pretty similar alignments. You can see they both hold left, and they both land from the wall bounce. And I'm trying to see, I think it looks like they took exactly the same line. It was just that Connor was a little bit down, so he's a little bit behind. But they get very similar wall bounces. I can't distinguish any differences. You'll notice they don't get their wheelie out immediately. You do tend to get some small bounces, so it's a lot safer to wait to get this wheelie. That is just what you tend to go for. You'll notice he wheelies around the edge of this ramp right here. So he gets the wheelie right here, and he goes off the ramp and just down a little bit. I mean, they have slight differences as they enter this room right here. Connor's a little bit to the left, which, like we looked at in lap 1, can be a little bit faster if you get the right bounces and you stick to the wall. You stay tight, and you'll notice he is staying left of this ghost pretty much the entire shroom. He's saving a little bit of time. Let's look at where he was before. It's very hard to tell because this ghost is kind of behind this one. He's staying nice and tight, just as we like it. So they exit. They're basically in the exact same spot on this frame. I mean, it is identical by this point. So Connor lost about 60 milliseconds. He gained it. He gained a little bit of it back, but he's going to gain a little more than that. So let's see how he does it. So he enters this left drift pretty much identical with this ghost. It looks like he is slightly higher up on the slope by this point. And look at how early he is landing on this zipper. He gets on super early, and he is able to get up to this top speed a lot earlier than this ghost is. So like we mentioned, let's compare lap 2. I mean, let's see how substantial this difference is. So he does the left drift, and look, he's entering around, I would say, this third triangle, like right here. Okay, so this is the third one. Let's compare to where he is on lap 3. I mean, he almost hit this fence, and he's at the first zipper. He took this perfectly. I don't think you could take this any tighter without hitting the wall. I mean, this is insanely tight. So I guess that means he lost a little bit of time lap 1 and 2 compared to like absolute perfection. He saved some considerable time there. Like, we'll notice this ghost. Let's see where the ghost ends up going. You can see he's just a little bit farther down. I mean, look, when Connor gets on this zipper right here, this ghost is off screen. It is nowhere near this zipper. This is so much faster than this ghost down here could ever dream of. You love to see it. And you can see he's already landing from this first boost, and this ghost is at the apex of its boost. So this is just so much better. Okay, so Connor is now on a very strong pace by this point. He took it absolutely perfectly up to that point. He's going to go ahead and do his third turn skip here. Let's see how he does it. He's going to cancel his wheelie. He's getting this low trick. I'm trying to see what the variations were here. Okay, so he gets a very nice low trick, a nice down trick as well. He gets his hop out. And let's see where they land. This is the important part. Now, right away, I'm noticing this ghost is a lot higher up. I mean, not a lot higher up, but he is higher up. And it looks like this is kind of a similar turn skip to what Connor got on lap 2, where he's not landing super far, he's not landing super tight like he did on lap 1, but he's landing at a good spot. So he cancels his wheelie, and he stays nice and tight. This looks like the tight variation. Like we noticed on lap 1, Connor was farther to the right. This does seem to be faster what he got right here. You can see this ghost, it's a little hard to tell exactly what the ghost got, since we're looking at Connor's perspective. But he's quite a bit ahead by this point. So as long as he can hold this going into the finish, this is going to be a good world record. Okay. So it looks like landing from this hop right here, he doesn't accelerate right away. He gets some slight bounces, like we'll notice. And this is just something I'm noticing now. But as he lands, pay attention to the speedometer. Okay, so he's at 81. He's on the ground. He's accelerating. Here. Pausing at 82.8 kilometers an hour. He's no longer on the ground. He's not accelerating at this point. The longer he spends at 82.8 kilometers per hour is time that you're losing compared to just being on the ground and not getting those bounces. And for a couple of frames, he is not actually accelerating. So he's losing a tiny bit of time compared to perfection. I think bounces are really to be expected. This isn't something you can reasonably control at a human level. So yeah, exiting that turn, we'll see Connor has a healthy lead over his former world record. They get pretty similar turns here. You can see he's just a little bit farther ahead, a little bit to the right as well. Entering the last turn, they hop around. It's the same spot, just a little bit earlier since Connor's ahead. And also, we have the biggest variation of this last turn than anything we've seen before. And I want to go ahead and look at that in the other Ghost perspective. So it was kind of hard to tell what happened in the Ghost perspective just because it was off screen. So it looks like he starts to drift. He was really going for an aggressive last turn here. And he doesn't get a great angle going into it. Like we said, sometimes you can kind of clip this wall, this upslope right here, and it can rotate your bike and give you a fantastic angle. This is not an example of that. And as you'll notice, he gets quite a bit of airtime. He's slowing down as he's in the air, and his bike is now facing like into nowhere. So this is not great. But once he lands, he's able to get his MT out, get his wheelie out. Doesn't lose a ton of time, but then again, at a world record level, this is something to take note of. So Connor now has an even more substantial lead. You'll notice he gets a very good last turn, doesn't clip the edge at all. And let's take a look at this last low trick. He's going to hold left, get his right drift out once again. Gets a very good low trick there, and we'll go ahead and finish it off at top speed. And he gets a good landing as well. And I can't even begin to explain, like, getting 3 for 3 good landings here, it feels just like luck. I don't have a good understanding of it. I think Connor has a really good understanding of it. But even in world record runs, like, it's not uncommon to see bounces on that landing. But he gets it well for 3 for 3. God, this lap 3 is crazy as well. Lap 2 can still go down quite a bit considering this difference here. Lap 2 shouldn't be any different than lap 3. It all comes down to driving. Whereas lap 1 you usually expect to be about 200 milliseconds slower than laps 2 and 3. Partly because you're entering the lap, obviously, with this trick boost right here. And, on flap attempts, it's so much better to do flap attempts on lap 2 and 3 than lap 1 for that reason as well. You can get a nice high trick. You can start off with a good boost. But yeah, so recorded by Connor. Thanks for recording, Connor. Really impressive run. A .915. Let's compare that to BKS, which is also an 816, which we looked at earlier. So, that being said, I remember when we were only theorizing that a 35 lap could be done humanly, and it would just take a really good driving. And, it's not just in a world record, but a low .9 is in a world record with potential for much more. And we'll notice, like, these best splits do give more than a 147. They give almost a mid 147. I still think best splits can be pushed down a little bit, as any best split could. It currently gives a 147.7, but I think these will continue to go down just slightly as Connor continues to play the track. But I think he's just really good at tech tracks. I mean, he's really good at DK Summit. He's really good at Waluigi Stadium. What else does he have? I'm actually curious. I want to see what other world records he has. He's played a bit of Rock Hop as well. DK Summit, Toad's Factory. Yeah, all the tech tracks, really. Mushroom Gorge was a big one. I remember seeing these in Nick's world record review videos of him getting a bunch of no shortcut records on Grimble Volcano. But yeah, very good player. This was a very impressive run to see, and I think we'll definitely see a 147 in the future. It might take a little bit. I think he is still actively playing this. The record only happened 15 days ago. It's about 2 weeks old now. Yeah, so we'll notice he has played this track quite a bit. He's been coming back to it here and there. I think he's definitely pushing for the 147. I don't know if he's been playing it every day or how often he's been playing it, but this definitely seems to be a track that he comes back to pretty reliably. So if he doesn't get it on this grind, I'm sure he will come back eventually and get it, maybe before Ace comes back and gets it. I think Ace is actually playing this track right now, so I think we could see something special from Ace as well. And with that being said, thank you guys so much for watching this video. I think this is going to be quite long compared to my other videos, but this is a very interesting track. I mean, there's so much tech to it, and it was an absolute pleasure to watch the video, other than the fact that there was no input display. Maybe next time. So once again, there will be a poll on my channel to determine the next track I review. Also, go ahead and subscribe. We are getting very close to 400 subscribers. I would greatly appreciate it if you guys subscribed and left a comment. Big motivator for me. Anyway, thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you all next time.